Hi everybody. So today the topic to discuss is the computer networks. So in computer networks, today we'll be discussing about one of the most basic concept that a beginner who is basically going to join a company or want to try to get a good understanding of basically how computers communicate with each other and how exactly this whole web applications are working. So the main concepts today like we'll be discussing will be not basically deep diving into those concepts, but at higher level, if you're a beginner, you'll be able to understand like what are this exactly. So today the most things we'll be discussing around is what is internet, and what is IP address, and what are port, and how are the IP address are related to the ports. So let's begin now. So as we can see in this diagram over here, let's say that clients. So basically the clients are the users, am I right? You take a mobile, let's say that you have a mobile phone and you're one client, and you're actually using mobile. Let's say that you have one app, basically you're using Facebook or you're using Instagram. So from your phone, let's say you're using Instagram, but how does actually you're getting your data when you see any kind of videos, or when you can say, when you see any kind of images, or when you see any kind of content from Instagram. So how exactly you are getting it, and where exactly it is storing, and how exactly that communication is happening between a client and the server, you know so that is called a client server architecture. Basically a client server architecture is a centralized architecture, the way whole web application functions today. So the brief, if you want to know briefly about in one definition what is a client server architecture: client sends a request and server gives a response to you. So but how does the client send a request, and how does the request go? And the request goes through internet. So internet plays like a very crucial and important role to pass this information between these two parties. Let's say that you are one party. Let's say that you are one side as a client, you want information. Another side is a server where the information is hosted. So to have a proper and reliable communication between those two, you'll be using internet. So in basic terms, right, internet is not something like you'll be can't imagine something else, but internet is just nothing but cables or wires in oceans which are connected globally. Let's say that now we'll be not going deep into like how exactly the internet works, but on the top overview of level, internet is nothing but just big, large wires which are maintained by the companies underground or in the ocean to make sure, in the form of wires in the form of optical fibers, to make sure the communication are reliable. So I think you got it, like what exactly the internet is. So through internet, you are actually communicating with the server. But the one point is, a client can't directly communicate with server, right? You need some kind of a protocol. Let's say, for example, let's say now you're in a school. Let's say you want to talk to a teacher. You will talk in certain way, right? You can't talk to a teacher like how you talk with your friend. So basically, when you go to a teacher, when you go to a principal, or when you go to higher authorities, you have some kind of a discipline or the way you'll be talking to it, right? Talking to them. You can't talk the same way like if you talk to friends. If you talk in the same way, then they will. That's not a good idea also to think of it. So the same way, right? In this world of applications, in this digital world, protocol is something the way you want to talk to a particular thing. Now let's say a client wants to talk to a server. The client will be using a certain protocol to communicate with the server. You know, it can be any protocol. It depends upon the kind of an application you'll be using. So we'll be discussing about that in the next few minutes. So let's assume that this is internet and this is working fine and everything. But in the world of computers, right? If one computer wants to communicate with the other computer, they know each other, right? They should know each other location so that they can communicate. So as a humans, right, we are actually, let's say that I want to go to some place, I be having address of that place so that I can go to that particular address and I can see that place. But how does computers have address? Then definitely yes, computers has address, but that are called IP addresses. So in this internet, any kind of communication which will happen between these two computers are done through IP addresses. So every system, every computer, every phone, everything which is present on internet will definitely have IP address. Okay. So IP address is basically identification of you. IP address is something, it's like you're claiming your identification, just like your what you call say like your name. So computers can identify each other with IP addresses. So mostly when you talk about IP addresses, you basically have two IP addresses. One is public IP address and another is private IP address. So what is a public IP addresses? Public IP addresses are those IP addresses which will be in public, which a world can see. So what, let's say now in the same scenario which I'll be showing you here is there's one laptop here in this image, and there's one server, and the server has an IP address 20.11.45.6, and which is present at some location. Now a client is what he's doing is basically typing 20.11.45.6. Now let's not get into IP address classes. There are four classes: class A, class B, and class C. So we'll be not going into that. We'll be going to that next video. But on the basic overview, whenever a computer wants to communicate with other computer over internet, they'll be using a public IP. They will never use a private IP to communicate with each other. Now, this client or this user at this left hand side is using a protocol to communicate with the server. Basically, as I told you, protocol it depends upon the application. Which kind of protocol, what kind of protocol, it depends upon the scenario, it depends upon the application, it totally depends upon the use case of what you're doing. So the basic standard protocols which you're using in the web is HTTPS. So we'll be discussing that also, what is HTTPS in the coming web videos. So it is using some protocol and it is telling that this is public IP and it is connected to the server. So with if the client or the user enters this public IP in his laptop, right? So he'll be able to connect to this particular server. So everything is working fine. No, everything is working fine. But when you actually have this IP address, with the help of IP address, I'm able to locate, right? Then why exactly I need port number? What is exactly the relationship between the port number and IP address? See, if you see on any web, right, whenever any kind of thing, if you see, for example, let's say any kind of a thing, technology you see, let's say HTTPS, in this top I'm showing HTTPS. This is a port 443. It is actually using a port 443 for a connection. So IP address always will be represented in the form of like this one. So basically, how IP address will get represented is, let's say I have an IP address called 1.1.1.1 colon 80. So why exactly I'm actually using the colon 80 here? IP address is fine, right? With help of IP address, I'll be able to identify the server or the computer's location. Why exactly I'm using the port number? The basic reason over here is, you know, let's take a very good example. Let's say that now you, for example, let's say you ordered something from Flipkart. You stay in an apartment of a 10 floors, 10 floors apartment, and your house number is 502. So, but the name of your apartment is same, right? Let's say your name of apartment is some kind of a like a good thing, like just for example, take it as a Shantiniketan or something. So an apartment name is Shantiniketan and you are living in a flat number 502. Now if you order, you will enter the Shantiniketan as in the full address. You'll enter Shantiniketan and you'll be adding the flat number. So if you don't add flat number, right, the person can't come to your flat and deliver the item which you ordered. The same way, when you have server, you'll be not only having a single application running over that server, you'll be actually having multiple applications running over the server. and each application can run in different port. For example, if you see in this diagram over here, app 1 is running on the port 443, app 2 is running on the port 1018, app 3 is running on the port 3389. So the client from here, when he's trying to make a request, is using the public IP. This is called address. Is using that and using the port. So what exactly happens here is this communication will only go to this port in this server. So the communication happens vice versa. If you use this one, it will go to the app 2 and the communication happens vice versa. If you use this port, the communication goes here and it happens vice versa. So let's say that put into the simpler terms. Now let's say if you see at the top right, I have different tabs open here in my Google. So each and every tab is different. Each and every tab which I've opened is different. Basically, let's say this is one Azure, this is Azure, and this is Microsoft login, and this is ChatGPT or some other thing. Each and everything are different, and each and everything are running in different ports. You know, so the when I do anything from this tab right now, the information should come for this tab itself. It should not actually, basically go into the other tabs. When you're using, let's say for example, when you're using Instagram and when you're using Facebook and you're chatting with friends simultaneously, when you send a chat from when you do a messenger in Facebook to a friend with message, your response should come to only the Facebook, right? It's not go to the Instagram. So the port basically identifies your program, or a port basically identifies your application. So every time whenever it's your IP address and ports are very related. IP address tells the main address and the port tells where to go. The same way in your case of apartment, tell that this is my apartment name, and you should definitely tell the flat number so that a person can come to your flat and give some kind of a delivery. The same way, it's as important as knowing IP address, it's as important to know the port also. So port and IP address play a very crucial role in communication between these servers. So I hope so, you understood. So let's see, like, what are the well-known ports over here is. So basically, ports ranging from 0 to 1023 are well-known ports. Basically, you'll be having HTTPS, HTTP, SMTP, FTP. So that are the ports which will be in this range, and the ports from the 1024 to this one will be registered ports, and the dynamic ports are from this range to this range. So this HTTP, FTP, SMTP, POP3, IAM, SSH, this all are different kind of protocols. I told you, right? So protocol is kind of a set of rules which will be using. Let's not go into TCP now as of now. We'll be going to the next coming up videos. But in the simpler term, protocol is something, a way to communicate with other. Way to your way in your way, you're communicating. Your communication is important. When I'm communicating with the server, I'll be using HTTP, and let's say that SMTP will be using for mail protocol. So you can't send an HTTP request to a mail server because it can't know, because every protocol contains some data. It's as a payload, right? It may contain some data which the server can identify. Okay, this is the protocol, this is the data I'm getting, so what should I do? It will know it. But if you send the same HTTP protocol to the SMTP server also, SMTP server means the mail server. The mail server may not identify the HTTP because the mail server only knows SMTP. So you need to only communicate with the SMTP protocol or the file server. When you want to communicate to the file server, you need to use FTP. FTP stands for file transfer protocol. You can't use an HTTP protocol to communicate to the file server. So it doesn't happen, right? So each and every protocol has its own use case and it has its own advantages and disadvantages. So I think that's it for video. I think I hope so. Basically, you got a brief understanding of what are this one. So yeah, thank you very much.